Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here with you, as my colleague said, with you who are so persistent to be here after so many great speeches. And I think it's not because of four of us, four white men, but because of the topic, religious freedom. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I need to convince any of us that freedom of religion, belief, and conscience is key to a democratic society. These are universal rights that have evolved over hundreds of years, often in bloody conflicts. It was from freedom of religion, belief, and conscience that rights such as freedom of speech, thought, or assembly were born. There are these rights that perhaps no one in Judeo-Christian civilization today doubts as really key. The opposite, however, occurs with freedom of religion, belief, and conscience, which I will call religious freedom for simplicity. It is as if our civilization has cut itself off from its history, from its roots, and current philosophical political concepts are flying in a vacuum. And these concepts are unfortunately not only closed in philosophical saloons, they are increasingly shaping our educational system, our culture. Religious freedom, as well as religion in general, is gradually pushed to the margins, preferably into the private sphere and into oblivion. We, here in the Central Europe, still remember a regime that had exactly the same goals. The result was a lack of freedom that permeated every aspect of the public sphere. Freedom could stay only in the privacy of our houses and flats. Fear and double life have taken over our lives. But life doesn't work that way. It cannot work that way. The present cannot be cut off from the past. Neither man nor society can live in a vacuum. Sooner or later, he will pay for it, end up like the communist regime in Central Europe that collapsed more than 30 years ago. Our societies, as well as our public institutions, must work to ensure that religious freedom and the role of religion in society are not lost. No. We are not supposed to start dreaming of going back to a time when our religion absolutely dominated the public debate, but we should definitely stand up to efforts to eliminate it from public space. The National Council of Slovak Republic, the Slovak Parliament, has repeatedly stood up for the defense of religious freedom and especially the freedom of Christians over the last 20 years. At the same time, it declared our sovereignty over cultural and ethical issues. One of the results of these resolutions is the appointment of the plenipotentiary of the government of Slovak Republic for protection of religious freedom and the establishment of her office a few months ago. It was not an easy process, but I consider the appointment of Anna Záborská as the first plenipotentiary on the eve of Holy Father Francis' visit to Slovakia as a great success. And something more was done. The government of Slovak Republic has decided that her bureau should devote itself to religious freedom both in Slovakia and abroad, and at the same time not only to monitor but also to help and to bring solutions. And at the same time, what I consider particularly important, to raise awareness of what religious freedom is and of the importance and merits of religion and churches for society. I think it's gigantic. We need your help to fulfill it. The knowledge I got so far from the work of the Bureau during the last 3 months since my appointment is this. Religious freedom interests few. Government institutions and in the overwhelming majority non-profit organizations are not interested in the topic at all. Many state measures to support the protection of religious freedom stay only on paper. This is what Pope Francis calls polite persecution, and this polite persecution is spreading. Violation of the fundamental rights to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion can occur anywhere, not only in countries where the persecution of believers or non-believers is defined by violence or similarly serious detriments. Worryingly, where violence does erupt because of religious identity or lack thereof, the antecedent to violent persecution with impunity is often a period where the rights of certain groups are eroded and then removed with discriminatory intent. In other countries, those which boast of a particularly robust respect for a rule of law, we have nonetheless seen the erosion of freedom of thought, conscience, and religions increasingly manifested. The reasons may include, but are not limited to, a cultural loss of appreciation and respect for certain majority religions, an overly dogmatic approach to equality, considerations which views traditional beliefs as something that are wrong and need to be changed, religious illiteracy, a radical secular approach to religion in public sphere, resentment over the historical role of a majority religion in country, and political correctness. Around the world, but primarily in the Western culture, we are seeing several of the dimensions of religious freedom restricted through over-regulation or through an intolerant and discriminatory application of laws which otherwise are meant to protect religious freedom. That is polite persecution. It reminds us that persecution does not always happen in absolutes, but can occur in degrees. When any element of religious freedom is diminished, there is a direct impact of health of country's social fabric, its respect for pluralism, and its commitment to tolerance and diversity. Our fight for religious freedom is a fight for our civilization. In conclusion, I might just briefly name what we are facing. Firstly, hybrid persecution inspired by Western legislation, laws constraining religious pluralism together with regular bloody persecution. Increasing religious violence in many countries around the world, of which women and girls are too often the victims. It is connected with ethno-religious nationalism and passing laws that complicate the reception of foreign funds simply to help the poor. Growing religious illiteracy in the West, leading to polite persecution, as I mentioned, originated in a misunderstanding of secularism, or maybe better to say, in intolerant secularism, and in misunderstanding of the importance of the integrity of religious freedom in all its dimensions. In many countries, authorities are convinced that being a secular state means erasing all traces of religion from public space, both real and virtual. Social media networks, almost a monopoly, cancel accounts and advertising that they deem inappropriate, particularly when carrying the word Christians on them. Thirdly, growing illiteracy in the West on international agreements on human rights, ignoring religious freedom in part that parents have the right to educate their children according to their own convictions. We have huge challenges here ahead of us, and we know we cannot do it alone. That's why we came here. Thanks to the organizers for the opportunity to be with you. We need to build alliances with people and organizations that see it as we do. Thank you.